Patterson, thank you for joining us, Dan.
Good to see you.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is back in his hometown today after a few rough weeks on the 2020 campaign trail. The Democratic presidential candidate faced low fundraising numbers and unfounded accusations of corruption in the Ukraine scandal. But now, a new national poll out today conducted by CNN shows Biden leading the field with 34%. Elizabeth Warren came in second with 19%. And this comes as Biden apologized for a 1998 remark in which he compared Bill Clinton's impeachment proceedings to a lynching. Here's what he said back then.
Even if the president should be impeached, history is going to question whether or not this was just a partisan lynching or whether or not it was something that, in fact, met the standard, the very high bar that was set by the founders as to what constituted an impeachable offense.
Joe Biden tweeted that this wasn't the right word to use and apologized. He went on to say that President Trump continues to stoke racial divides in the country. I want to bring in Caitlin Huey-Burns. She's our CBSN political reporter, and she joins me from West Point, Iowa. So, Caitlin, how is Biden and his campaign explaining these remarks on lynching?
Well, they're really leaving it at that statement that you saw there and not really addressing it further. We'll see if it comes up at his events later today here in Iowa, where we will be. But I think the issue here is that yesterday you had most of the presidential candidates able to come out and condemn the president's remarks. And meanwhile, you have Joe Biden facing this kind of long record that he has had and lots of interviews and statements and past statements that are going to be heavily scrutinized. So I think, you put this against the backdrop of what we've seen, at least here in Iowa, where candidates like Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg have sensed openings among some of those perhaps voters that might have supported Biden but may be looking for another candidate. Do these kinds of controversies kind of start to add up for Biden and kind of force some of those other voters to take a second look at other candidates who may not have as long of a history or have this kind of potential baggage?
So we mentioned a new CNN national poll that has Biden as the front runner. What does that mean for him at this point, Caitlin?
Well, the Biden campaign is very excited about this poll, and particularly a couple of things that we're seeing in it. First, his support among moderate and conservative Democratic voters has ticked up significantly. So has his support among non-white voters. And that's important because when you talk to the Biden campaign, they consistently say that Biden's diverse coalition sets him apart from the other candidates. And so even as you may see his support dropping in some early states or dropping among some constituencies, they are relying on that diverse coalition constituency that they have been building, and they believe that will set them apart from someone like Elizabeth Warren or some of these other challengers that have become upstarts like Pete Buttigieg. So that's a distinction they want to make. And also, this is a huge uptick from the last time he was polled back in April, the biggest lead yet, at least in this poll. Now, we have to note that national polls don't really mean much, right? Because there's no national primary. So we like to focus on the individual state polls. That gives us a better snapshot. But in this cycle, these national polls contribute to the debate requirements, right? So you have to score in these national polls to be able to make it onto the debate stage. We know how critical those debates have come in terms of shaping the field.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because that same poll put Senator Amy Klobuchar and Beto O'Rourke closer to qualifying for the next debate in December. What else do they need to qualify?
Right. Well, Amy Klobuchar just needs one more debate poll after this. So the qualification is that you need to get about 3% in at least 4 national polls or 5% in a few early state polls. So this CNN poll means that Amy Klobuchar is just one poll away, national poll away from qualifying for that debate. Beto O'Rourke, on the other hand, needs 2 more after this. So Klobuchar's campaign is excited about the opportunity of getting closer to that debate stage, and especially here in Iowa, where we followed her campaign over the weekend, she sees potential for inroads, especially among those more moderate or centrist Democrats who are assessing all of these candidates and trying to figure out who is best to defeat Donald Trump.
And Senator Bernie Sanders will rally with another squad member this weekend, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. So could we see another endorsement here from her at this point?
Right. He already has 2 members of the squad in his corner, so looking for those other members. These are coveted endorsements, but it's particularly interesting to look at a state like Michigan. Bernie Sanders won the primary there, and that has been part of his larger appeal, that he can win in these states that Donald Trump won in 2016. But especially when you look at Tlaib's district, which is part of Detroit, this more diverse area, and kind of resembles the internal discussions that Democrats are having about how to win back the Midwest. Do you focus on places like Detroit and the surrounding areas that have more diversity, or do you try to ramp up support among Trump voters and try to convert them back? So this will be a significant, at least appearance for Bernie Sanders, and especially as he's trying to kind of build up and diversify his constituency.
Caitlin